Rain hammered the windshield so hard, it sounded like gunfire when Detective Aaron Vale first saw the woman standing beside the highway at 2:13 a.m., completely motionless, beneath a broken streetlight, outside Black Hollow, West Virginia, wearing a dark coat soaked with rain and holding an old cassette tape in one trembling hand. But what made him slam the brakes wasn't the blood running down her fingers. It was the fact that 22 years earlier, the exact same woman had officially been declared dead. The police file said Emily Graves disappeared in October of 1998 after the brutal murder of her parents inside their farmhouse on Briar Road, a case so violent the town still whispered about it like a curse. But now she stood there pale and breathing in the middle of the storm with hollow eyes that looked older than the night itself. And before Aaron could even speak, she leaned toward his window and whispered, "I found the man who ruined my life. And before sunrise, one of us will be dead." Thunder cracked across the mountains as she climbed into the passenger seat without waiting for permission, bringing with her the smell of wet earth and something metallic, like old blood trapped inside rusted pipes. While Aaron stared at her in disbelief because he had spent the last 6 years investigating unsolved disappearances, and he knew this case better than anyone. Emily Graves was the ghost story every parent in Black Hollow used to terrify their children. The girl who vanished after allegedly witnessing the murder of her family. The girl whose burnt necklace was found near the river weeks later. The girl everyone believed had been killed by escaped convict Daniel Mercer, a drifter with a history of violence who disappeared before police could arrest him. But now Emily slowly placed the cassette tape on the dashboard and said, "Play it." Aaron hesitated only a second before sliding the tape into the ancient recorder built into his truck, and at first there was only static, soft crackling drowned by rain, until suddenly a terrified child's voice whispered through the speakers, "Please, don't let him downstairs," followed by a violent bang and a woman screaming so loudly Aaron physically flinched. Then another voice emerged low and calm, a man's voice saying, "Look at me, Emily. If you scream again, I'll kill your mother first." The tape abruptly ended. Silence swallowed the truck except for the storm outside. Aaron's hands tightened around the wheel. "Where did you get this?" he asked. Emily stared straight ahead at the dark road disappearing into the forest. "He kept it," she whispered. "For 22 years, he kept all of them." Aaron felt cold spread through his chest because only police investigators had known evidence tapes existed from the Graves case, and most of those recordings had mysteriously vanished after the fire that destroyed the old sheriff's archive in 2003. "Emily," he said carefully, "who are you talking about?" She finally turned toward him, her face illuminated by lightning for one terrifying second, revealing bruises around her wrists. "Sheriff Collins." Aaron's blood froze. Sheriff Nathan Collins had been Black Hollow's lawman for almost 3 decades, respected by everyone. The man who practically raised Aaron after his own father died, the man who attended church every Sunday and donated to missing children charities. But Emily's expression held no uncertainty. "He murdered my parents," she said, "and tonight I'm going to prove it." Aaron almost laughed from shock, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the bruises, maybe it was the tape, or maybe it was the way Emily spoke, like someone who had spent 22 years rehearsing revenge in total darkness. The truck rolled through town as neon reflections bled across wet pavement, every storefront dark except for the old diner near the gas station, where exhausted miners drank coffee through the night, unaware that the town's dead girl had returned. Aaron parked beneath a flickering lamp behind the sheriff's station and turned to her again. "If Collins did this," he asked quietly, "why disappear for 22 years? Emily's jaw tightened. "Because he kept me alive." Another thunderclap shook the windows. Aaron stared at her. "What?" She slowly rolled up her sleeve, revealing pale scars crossing her arms like knife marks. "He locked me underground," she whispered. "Under the church." For several seconds, Aaron couldn't breathe. He remembered the church basement. Every year during winter food drives, Sheriff Collins organized charity events there. Children played downstairs while parents laughed upstairs drinking coffee beneath stained glass windows. Emily continued speaking with terrifying calm. "He told everyone I died because dead girls aren't searched for forever. But prisoners are easier to hide when nobody knows they exist." Aaron felt sick. "Why let you go now?" Emily looked down at the cassette player. "Because he's dying." At 3:01 a.m., Aaron and Emily entered the abandoned Graves farmhouse at the edge of Briar Road, the same house left untouched since the murders. Police tape still clung to broken porch rails like dead snakes. The storm had knocked out power across half the county. and their flashlights cut through darkness filled with mold, dust, and the smell of rot. Every step across the wooden floor echoed like a scream. Emily moved through the house with terrifying familiarity, pausing near the staircase where dried black stains still marked the floorboards. "My mother died here," she whispered. Aaron noticed her hands shaking violently now. "Emily!" She ignored him and walked into the kitchen. "He wore gloves," she said softly, but he forgot one thing. She knelt beside a loose floorboard hidden beneath collapsed cabinets and pulled it open, revealing a rusted metal box wrapped in plastic. Aaron crouched beside her as she slowly opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Pictures of young girls sleeping through windows, school playgrounds, grocery stores, churches. Some photos had dates written on the back spanning nearly 30 years. But then Aaron saw something worse. One photograph showed Emily chained to a bed inside a concrete room. His stomach twisted. "Jesus Christ." Emily's voice cracked for the first time. "He collected us." Aaron flipped through more photos until he stopped at one that made his entire body go numb. It showed Sheriff Nathan Collins standing beside Emily's father at a fishing trip 2 weeks before the murders, smiling directly at the camera while wearing the same sheriff badge he still carried today. On the back, written in faded ink, were 5 words: "She knows about the basement." Suddenly, footsteps creaked upstairs. Aaron's flashlight snapped toward the ceiling. Silence. Then another step. Slow, heavy. Emily's face drained of color. "He's here," she whispered. Aaron pulled his handgun instantly and moved toward the staircase while rain slammed the roof overhead. The old house groaned around them like something alive. Another footstep echoed above. Aaron climbed slowly, flashlight trembling across peeling wallpaper and family portraits covered in dust. The hallway upstairs stretched into darkness. One door stood slightly open at the end. "Sheriff Collins?" Aaron called. No answer. Emily stood frozen behind him, breathing hard. Then came a soft sound from inside the room. Crying. A child crying. Aaron pushed the door open violently, gun raised high, and his flashlight landed on an ancient television, sitting in the corner playing grainy VHS footage. On screen, a little girl sat chained to a bed crying for help. Emily collapsed instantly. "No," she whispered. Aaron stepped closer to the television, horrified as more footage played. Different girls, different years, all trapped inside the same concrete room. Then the screen flickered, revealing a recent recording of Sheriff Collins sitting calmly in a chair staring directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, Emily," he said softly, "then you finally came home." Aaron felt dread crawl through his veins as Collins continued. "You always were my favorite, but revenge can make people careless, and now Detective Vale knows too much." Suddenly, headlights appeared through the upstairs window outside. Multiple vehicles. Aaron rushed to the glass and saw sheriff patrol cars surrounding the farmhouse. Doors opened. Armed deputies stepped into the rain. Emily backed away in terror. "He found us," she whispered. Then Aaron's police radio exploded with static before a familiar voice came through cold and calm. "Sheriff Collins." "Detective Vale," he said. "Step away from the girl. She's wanted for multiple murders." Aaron stared at Emily in shock. "What?" Collins' voice crackled again. "Ask her what happened to the other girls." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Don't listen to him." But before Aaron could speak, another voice shouted from outside through a megaphone. "Emily Graves, come out with your hands up." Then Collins said one final sentence that made Aaron's blood run cold. "She didn't escape me, Detective. I escaped her." Lightning exploded across the sky as Aaron slowly turned toward Emily inside the rotting bedroom. The flickering television still illuminating her tear-streaked face while police sirens painted the rain outside in violent flashes of red and blue. And for one terrifying moment, he didn't know who to believe because the woman standing before him looked broken enough to be a victim, yet haunted enough to be something far worse. "Tell me the truth," Aaron whispered, gun still lowered but trembling slightly in his hand, while downstairs, the front door of the farmhouse slammed open and heavy boots thundered across the floorboards beneath them. Emily backed into the corner beside the television, shaking her head desperately. "He's lying," she whispered. "Aaron, please. If they take me back there, I won't survive again." But then Sheriff Collins' voice echoed from downstairs, calm and controlled like a preacher entering church. "Detective Vale," he called. "You don't understand what she's done." Aaron stepped into the hallway, aiming his weapon down the staircase where several deputies stood frozen behind Collins himself. A tall, gray-haired man drenched by rain, his sheriff hat dripping water onto the wooden floor. Nathan Collins looked exactly the same as he had for years. Steady eyes, calm posture, gentle voice, the perfect lawman. But tonight, something darker lived beneath his expression. "Step aside, Aaron," Collins said quietly. "That woman murdered 3 people this week." Aaron's mind spun. What people? Collins reached slowly into his coat and pulled out photographs sealed in evidence bags before tossing them onto the stairs. Aaron picked one up. A man's body lay mutilated inside a motel bathroom, throat slashed open. Another showed an elderly nurse beaten to death in her kitchen. The third photograph made Aaron's stomach drop completely. It showed Deputy Leon Harker hanging from a tree outside Black Hollow Cemetery, his eyes gouged out. Emily looked away instantly. "No," Aaron whispered. Collins' face remained cold, all connected to the old Graves case, all killed after Emily resurfaced. Thunder shook the house again. Emily suddenly screamed, "Because they helped him!" Her voice cracked violently now. "They watched children disappear for years." The deputies downstairs exchanged nervous looks. Collins sighed heavily like a disappointed father. "Aaron," he said softly, "she's unstable. Trauma destroyed her mind years ago. We tried to help her." Emily laughed then, but the sound was horrifying, almost inhuman. "Help me?" she spat. "You chained me underground?" Collins finally lost his calm for half a second. "I protected you." Silence swallowed the room instantly. Aaron stared at him. Collins realized what he had just admitted, but it was too late. Emily smiled through tears. "There it is," she whispered. Collins' eyes hardened. "You don't know what she became down there." Before Aaron could react, every light in the farmhouse suddenly died. Darkness consumed everything. A deputy downstairs cursed loudly. Then came the sound of breaking glass somewhere behind the house. Collins shouted instantly, "She's running!" Chaos exploded. Flashlights swung wildly through darkness as deputies stormed outside into the rain. Aaron turned back toward the bedroom, but Emily was already gone. Only the old television remained glowing with static. "Damn it!" Aaron rushed downstairs and into the storm, where mud swallowed his boots instantly. Deputies searched the woods with flashlights while thunder rolled above the mountains like distant explosions. Collins grabbed Aaron's shoulder hard. "Listen to me carefully," he growled. "She manipulates people. She's dangerous." Aaron ripped free. "You admitted keeping her hidden." Collins stared at him with dead eyes. "Because the truth would have destroyed this town." Then he walked away toward the patrol cars without another word. At 4:26 a.m., Aaron sat alone inside his truck outside the farmhouse, replaying everything in his head while rain blurred the windshield like smeared ink. Something felt deeply wrong. Collins wasn't acting like a man falsely accused. He was acting like someone terrified of exposure. Aaron reached for the evidence photos again and noticed something strange on the motel murder image. A symbol painted on the bathroom mirror in blood. A small circle with a vertical line through it. He froze. He had seen that symbol before. Suddenly, he remembered the old archive files from the Graves investigation. Aaron turned the truck around immediately and sped through the storm toward Black Hollow Sheriff Station. The roads were nearly empty except for flickering traffic lights and flooded gutters overflowing into the streets. By the time he reached the station, dawn was still hours away. Inside, the building felt unnaturally quiet. Aaron hurried to the basement records room where thousands of cold cases sat buried beneath dust and darkness. After 20 frantic minutes, he found the old Graves evidence boxes hidden behind flood-damaged files. Most were empty. Missing reports, witness statements, tape recordings, gone. But inside the final box, Aaron discovered a child's drawing dated October 1998. His blood turned cold instantly. The drawing showed a church with a staircase leading underground. Beneath it was the same symbol from the motel mirror. Circle, vertical line. Aaron flipped the paper over and found handwriting on the back in faded blue crayon. "They take the girls below." Footsteps suddenly echoed behind him. Aaron spun around with his flashlight raised and found Deputy Marquine standing in the doorway, pale and breathing hard. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Aaron narrowed his eyes. "What do you know about this symbol?" Mara looked terrified. "Leave town tonight," she said. "Please." Aaron stepped closer. Mara. Tears filled her eyes instantly. "There are more of them." The basement lights flickered violently overhead. "What are you talking about?" Aaron demanded. Mara swallowed hard. Not just Collins. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. The church, the sheriff department, social workers, foster homes, they've been taking girls for decades. Aaron felt ice spread through his chest. Who? Mara shook her head frantically. I don't know everyone, I swear. But Leon knew. The nurse knew. Collins kept records on all of them. Where? Mara hesitated too long. Aaron realized she was terrified someone might already be listening. Then suddenly the station lights cut out completely. Total darkness. Mara gasped. A second later came a loud metallic click from somewhere upstairs. The sound of the front doors locking automatically. Aaron pulled his gun instantly. Stay behind me. Emergency red backup lights flickered on across the basement, bathing the room in hellish crimson. Then Aaron heard it. Footsteps. Slow footsteps descending the basement stairs. Mara started crying immediately. They know, she whispered. The footsteps stopped just beyond the doorway. Silence. Then a calm male voice spoke from the darkness. Detective Vale. Aaron recognized Sheriff Collins instantly. You should have gone home. Aaron aimed his gun toward the doorway. How many girls? Collins sighed deeply. You think this town survives on coal and tourism? His silhouette slowly appeared beneath the red lights. Black Hollow survives because powerful people pay for silence. Aaron felt physically sick. Collins stepped fully into the room, now holding no weapon. Only an old leather folder. You still believe monsters look like monsters, he said quietly. That's why you're losing. Mara suddenly screamed, Don't trust him, and bolted toward the back exit. The gunshot came instantly, deafening inside the basement. Mara collapsed against the shelves, blood spreading across her chest. Aaron fired reflexively, but Collins disappeared into darkness as alarms suddenly erupted throughout the station. Sprinklers activated overhead, drenching the room while red lights flashed violently. Aaron crawled toward Mara as she coughed blood desperately. Mara! She grabbed his coat with shaking fingers. The tapes! She choked. Under St. Mercy Church. Blood spilled from her mouth now. There's a room. Her body went limp. Aaron stared at her in horror while the alarm screamed around him. Then his radio crackled alive through static. Emily's voice. Aaron. He froze. Emily. Her breathing sounded panicked. They found me. Somewhere behind her, metal door slammed violently. Men shouted in the distance. Where are you? Aaron demanded. The tunnels, she whispered. Under the church. Then came a terrifying sound on the radio. Sheriff Collins speaking directly beside her. Run, Emily screamed. The transmission cut instantly. Aaron sprinted from the basement into the storm again, heart hammering violently as dawn slowly threatened the horizon beyond the mountains. St. Mercy Church stood at the edge of town overlooking Black Hollow Cemetery, its stained glass windows glowing faintly beneath lightning storms, like the eyes of something ancient waiting in darkness. By the time Aaron arrived, every door stood open. Wind howled through the empty chapel, carrying the smell of mildew and candle smoke. He moved cautiously between wooden pews until he noticed fresh blood smeared across the altar floor, leading toward a hidden staircase behind the choir room. Aaron descended slowly into darkness beneath the church, while distant screams echoed somewhere below him through underground tunnels. Concrete walls appeared, rusted pipes, heavy steel doors. Then he found them. Small rooms, chains bolted to beds, children's drawings covering walls, hundreds of cassette tapes stacked across shelves labeled with dates going back nearly 30 years. Aaron's hands shook uncontrollably now, but then he heard crying nearby. He followed the sound into the deepest chamber underground and stopped cold. Emily sat chained to a chair beneath a hanging light bulb, blood running from her forehead, while Sheriff Collins stood beside her holding a revolver calmly pointed at her head. But Aaron barely noticed them because of what hung from the walls around the room. Photographs. Hundreds and hundreds of photographs. Missing girls, some dating back decades, some still children, some dead. And in the center of them all was one recent photograph that destroyed Aaron completely. A little blonde girl smiling beside her mother outside a grocery store. Aaron recognized her instantly, his own daughter. Collins smiled faintly. Now, he whispered, do you finally understand why Emily waited 22 years for revenge? Aaron felt the world collapse inward as he stared at the photograph of his daughter pinned among the missing girls beneath St. Mercy Church, the hanging bulb above them swaying slightly, while water dripped somewhere deep inside the underground tunnels like a ticking clock counting down toward death. And for several horrifying seconds, he couldn't even hear Emily screaming through the blood roaring inside his ears because the smiling face in that photograph belonged to 8-year-old Lucy Vale, his daughter, taken just 3 days earlier outside her school while he stood only 20 feet away talking to another parent. Sheriff Nathan Collins watched the realization destroy him with almost fatherly sadness. "Now you understand," he said quietly. "Nobody notices until it's their child." Aaron raised his gun with trembling hands. "Where is she?" Collins tilted his head slightly. "Safe." Emily suddenly spat blood onto the floor. "He means hidden." Collins backhanded her so hard the chair nearly tipped over. Aaron lunged forward instantly, but Collins aimed the revolver directly at Emily's skull. "One more step," he warned calmly, "and she dies before she gets her revenge." Silence swallowed the chamber except for Emily's ragged breathing and the distant thunder above the church. Aaron's mind raced desperately. The walls around him were covered with decades of horror-missing posters, photographs, recordings, newspaper clippings, trophies stolen from children who vanished into darkness, while the town above attended football games, church festivals, and Christmas parades pretending evil lived somewhere else. Collins slowly walked toward the center table beneath the light, opening the old leather folder he carried. "Do you know what people with power fear most?" he asked. "Exposure." Inside the folder were names, judges, police officers, social workers, business owners, ministers. Aaron's stomach twisted. Black Hollow wasn't hiding one monster. It was hiding an entire network. Collins looked exhausted suddenly, older than Aaron had ever seen him. "It started long before me," he whispered. "The mines collapsed in the 70s. The town was dying. Men with money offered solutions." Emily laughed weakly through blood. "You sold children." Collins snapped toward her violently. "I kept this town alive!" His voice echoed through the chamber now. "Families survived because of me. Schools stayed open because of me. People got jobs because of me." Aaron stared at him in disbelief. "You kidnapped girls." Collins' expression darkened. "No," he whispered. "I selected sacrifices." Emily's eyes filled with pure hatred. "You murdered my mother because she found the tunnels." Collins didn't deny it this time. Instead, he looked directly at Aaron. The Graves family was unfortunate. Her father discovered the recordings. Emily saw my face. His voice softened again. "I couldn't let the town burn." Aaron realized then that Collins truly believed everything he'd done was necessary. That was the terrifying part. He wasn't insane. He was convinced evil could become acceptable if enough people benefited from it. Emily suddenly whispered, "Ask him about Lucy." Aaron's entire body tightened instantly. Collins smiled faintly. "She's still alive." Aaron nearly broke. "Where?" Collins glanced toward the deeper tunnels disappearing behind the chamber. "Not far." Then he looked back at Emily. "But she won't survive unless you help me." Emily stared at him with dead eyes. "Never," Collins sighed. "After all I did for you." Aaron looked between them confused. "What does that mean?" Emily lowered her head slowly. "Tell him," she whispered. Collins smiled sadly. "Emily wasn't only my prisoner." Aaron felt cold dread return instantly. "What are you talking about?" Collins walked toward the photographs covering the wall and touched one gently. "For years, she obeyed me. She helped choose girls, helped control them. Sometimes trauma changes people into monsters, too." Aaron looked at Emily in horror. "No." Tears streamed down her face now. "I was 13, she whispered. "He locked me underground for years. He made me watch what happened when children disobeyed." Her voice cracked violently. "After a while, survival becomes uglier than death." Collins nodded slowly. "She became useful." Emily suddenly screamed. "I killed them because they deserved it." The chamber fell silent again. Aaron realized then the murders Collins accused her of were real. Deputy Harker, the nurse, the motel victim. Every one of them connected to the network beneath Black Hollow. Emily had spent 22 years hunting them one by one. Revenge hadn't saved her. It had transformed her into something terrifying. Collins looked almost disappointed. "You could have disappeared forever," he told her softly. "But revenge always brings people home." Then the church bells above them suddenly rang loudly through the storm. Collins checked his watch calmly. "It's time." Aaron frowned. "Time for what?" Collins smiled faintly. "For Black Hollow to bury its secrets." A distant explosion shook the tunnels instantly. Dust rained from the ceiling. Emily's eyes widened in terror. "He rigged the church. Collins nodded. Every tunnel, every room, every tape. Another explosion echoed deeper underground. Aaron lunged forward, grabbing Collins violently, slamming him against the wall. "Where's my daughter?" Collins only smiled through blood running from his nose. "You still don't understand." He leaned closer, whispering, "There are towns worse than this one." Then he headbutted Aaron hard enough to stagger him backward before firing the revolver directly into the ceiling light. Darkness consumed the chamber instantly. Gunshots exploded through the tunnels. Emily screamed. Aaron crashed against concrete trying to regain balance, while more explosions shook the underground rooms around them. Somewhere in darkness, Collins moved calmly like he knew every inch of the tunnels. Then came his voice echoing through blackness. "Find your daughter before the fire reaches the lower chambers." Aaron heard metal doors slam somewhere ahead. He rushed blindly through darkness, following distant crying, until he found a narrow hallway lit only by emergency red lights flickering overhead. Smoke already filled the tunnels. Behind one steel door, he heard small fists pounding desperately. "Daddy!" Aaron nearly collapsed. "Lucy!" He shot the lock twice and ripped the door open. His daughter threw herself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. She was alive. Bruised, but alive. Aaron held her tightly, while smoke thickened around them. "We're leaving." But then another figure emerged through the haze at the end of the hallway. Emily. She stood bleeding heavily, one hand pressed against her stomach. "He's gone deeper," she whispered. "There's another exit through the cemetery." Aaron grabbed Lucy and started moving when Emily suddenly handed him a small cassette tape stained with blood. "If I die," she said quietly, "give this to the FBI." Aaron looked at her. "Come with us." Emily stared at Lucy for a long moment, her expression breaking apart emotionally. "I don't deserve out there anymore." Before Aaron could answer, automatic gunfire erupted from deeper within the tunnels. Men shouting. Collins wasn't alone. Members of the network were escaping. Emily looked toward the sounds with cold hatred returning to her eyes. "Go," she whispered. Aaron realized what she intended instantly. "Emily? He took my entire life." Tears mixed with blood on her face now. "Tonight, I take his." Then she disappeared into the smoke carrying Collins's revolver. Aaron carried Lucy through collapsing tunnels while flames spread rapidly behind them. Old tapes melting in the heat, photographs curling into ash, decades of hidden crimes burning beneath St. Mercy Church. They finally burst into the cemetery outside, just as dawn began bleeding gray light across Black Hollow. Town sirens screamed everywhere now. Fire engines raced toward the church while smoke poured from beneath the ground like the town itself was exhaling its sins. Aaron collapsed beside his daughter in the wet grass, holding her so tightly she cried again. Then came the final explosion. St. Mercy Church erupted in flames. Stained glass windows shattered outward across the cemetery as the bell tower collapsed into fire and smoke. People screamed. Deputies ran in chaos. But Aaron only stared at the inferno, knowing Emily and Collins were still somewhere inside it. Hours later, federal agents flooded Black Hollow. Arrests began immediately. Hidden accounts, secret files, missing children cases reopened across multiple states. The town's trusted leaders were dragged from homes in handcuffs, while news helicopters circled overhead. But they never found Emily's body. Or Collins. 3 weeks later, Aaron sat alone inside his house, unable to sleep. While rain tapped softly against the windows, Lucy was finally safe upstairs. The nightmare should have ended. But then he noticed something sitting beside his front door. A small package wrapped in brown paper. No return address. Aaron opened it slowly. Inside was another cassette tape. His blood froze instantly. Written across the label in black ink were 5 words. "The last girl is alive." Beneath the tape was a photograph taken only days earlier. Sheriff Nathan Collins standing beside a highway at night, somewhere far outside Black Hollow, smiling. And beside him stood Emily Graves. Aaron's hands began shaking violently as he turned the photograph over and read the final sentence written on the back in faded red ink. "Revenge doesn't end monsters. It teaches them how to survive."